Good evening. Today is August 13th, 2026. It is now, the time is now 6:05 p.m. and we're calling this meeting back to order. Debbie, would you call roll, please?
Here. Here.
Here. Teresa Marlin. Here.
Okay, Matt Lund, budget workshop or city administrator?
I'll take it.
Jen's meeting.
Do you have the 2027 budget discussion on your monitors up there? Yes. Okay, so you're seeing what I'm seeing here. Okay, just before we get going, we're just going to do a little review like we have in the past. Just as a reminder, some of the terminology that we'll be using, or Matt will be using tonight. Of course, ad valorem tax. Ad valorem tax is simply your property tax. The mill rate is your property tax rate. We'll be talking about mills. Currently, one mill generates approximately $37,185. And your tax levy, which is your revenue generated by applying your mill rate to your assessed valuation. Tonight we'll be talking about the capital improvement and equipment fund primarily. We've covered general utility bonded interest and special funds. So the funds we'll be talking about tonight, these are primarily funded by our sales tax. So that's why our mill levy is very important in this discussion. That's where a majority of this funding comes from, is from our mill levy. It's also referred to as the capital improvement, and it also includes streets and highway funds.
Excuse me for clarification. What funds are we talking about this evening?
CIP.
And what else? Just CIP.
Just the CIP. Yeah.
I'm covering the whole budget.
Okay, I
He's
thought it
covering the
said
whole budget
general
then.
fund and operating fund
Yeah,
as well.
you've got all the operating funds
Okay.
as well. Matt has a capital budget that
Okay.
he's covering.
Great.
Thank
So
you.
one thing I just want to go over here, because I have discussion with people over their property taxes. You guys have discussions over property taxes, and this is a good illustration. I've given this illustration before, the dollar bill broken down to what portion of our taxes go towards our property taxes. And through my discussions with people are always saying, we want our property taxes lower. We want the city to lower our property taxes. Well, when we get through those discussions, they quickly realize that what the city levies as part of their tax bill, their property tax bill, is relatively small, less than 25%. For Kechi and a lot of other cities, a majority of your property taxes are paid to your local school district. As you can see here, in Kechi, we're split. Part of the city is in the 259, the Wichita School District. Part of the city is in the Valley Center School District, the 262. And as you can see, approximately 38% of the property tax, somebody's property tax bill goes towards Wichita school taxes. And about 44% of their property tax goes towards Valley Center school taxes if you live in those districts. So my point is that I know a lot of people push cities to lower their mill rate, but one thing we need to understand is during those conversations, we need them to understand that what we levy is a small portion of their tax bill. Also, what we levy is used for core services to support the city. So all of those taxes that they pay for Kechi go to support everybody in the city, those core services that we provide to everybody. Whereas your school taxes don't necessarily affect everybody, especially in a community like Kechi where our median age is 65 and older. A lot of those people are empty nesters. They don't have people in the school district, or very young couples who don't have kids in the school district yet. So I think that's important to point out. We have Matt Long here again. He will go over our budget for 2027 and second quarter 2026 financials. And I want to bring us back to some of the percentages that we use throughout the budget process, how we, I guess you would say, divvy up a lot of the different expenses throughout the city. So you can look through this chart and see what comes from general fund. Out of general fund, a majority of your administrative costs, your police department comes out of general fund, court services. Very little of those come from the Public Works Department. Public Works is primarily supported through utility funds. So for 2027, some of our, I guess you would say, major requests, Public Works is probably the biggest one for a future Public Works facility, and we will talk more about that as we get into our discussion tonight. As far as the police department, chief is not able to be here tonight. He is on vacation, so I told him I would cover his portion of the budget. Police department really didn't have any major asks this year. They just want to maintain current operations. They're getting up to full staff. Getting up to full staff, there's a lot of expenses associated with that as far as equipping the officers, making sure that throughout 2027, they have enough fuel, because now that they're full staff, they're going to be running their cars more, make sure they have enough in their funds for vehicle repair. And their CIP, or the city's CIP, has been adjusted to contain future needs for the police department. But for 2027, very, very slim. For administration, we have the facility needs assessment also. That will cover looking at the potential for a future public works facility, but it will also include all facilities within the city, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. Strategic plan for the CIP and the sidewalk master plan, both things that were identified in our workshop with Ty Lasher. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
We're going to do Thomas.
Oh yeah, let's bring Thomas up first. I'm going to have Thomas, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this, I want Thomas to talk about some of the things with Public Works, some of his requests, some of the things that we talked about. He did have some equipment needs this year. Most of those focus on a new facility. He had some brine making equipment that he really feels needs to go into a new building. So after we talked about it, we pushed that back a year in the CIP so we can identify what we're going to do for a new facility for Public Works before we move forward on that. So Thomas, you want to come up and give any input on your budget that you have in answering?
Yeah, so I guess we kind of stepped back on our utility, like for equipment costs going into the future. The biggest thing that we're having to deal with right now is storing equipment outside. So it's sitting out there, with the weather, with the rodents, whatever, maybe they like to climb up in there. I think currently we have 5 different pieces of equipment sitting outside. We did buy a storage container. That storage container is also already full. The brine tank, we kind of put that on hold because the brine tank really needs to be inside. You really need to have it in an enclosure just because spill of that nature from that machine is a stormwater violation. Kind of the way the setup we have now is kind of out of compliance, but we try to keep it contained as much as possible. I mean, we can't just go without brine or without street clearing things, but yeah, finding somewhere to store those things, setting up some office spaces. Currently we will be at max capacity or max employees on Monday. It will be 8 total employees in Public Works. We share one bathroom. So if you can imagine 8 guys trying to share one bathroom, it's extremely difficult. So they're either coming here, or going to the gas station, or wherever it may be. There's 2 offices over there. One is kind of for the assistant. It's not big enough to have any safety meetings or anything like that. So the shop is not cooled. So obviously when it's 109 degrees and you're trying to have a safety meeting, tailgates are nice, but when it's that hot, just somewhere we can do our training, set up things. We got to put up a TV or pull down a projector to go through things. Something like that would be nice also. Just kind of trying to upgrade with the times. I know that when they built that building, it was supposed to be a forever building. but it really lacks a lot of things that are needed anymore. I mean, obviously it doesn't have a washout bay, which with stormwater, we can't just wash our trucks with all the grease and dirt on them right onto the ground. So, something like that would be nice to add to it too. But yeah, as for future needs and future growth, it's really difficult trying to store things in there of that nature. So I was talking to Matt about it. We had looked at putting a 40 by 60 down at the old sewer lagoons, South Park, whatever people want to call it, and storing like the grader down there. But as we talked, it might be better to have another building and either look like KDOT out there and have all our stuff on one side, or maybe look at, with Sunnydale being so far away, a main office with a satellite to store that grader, because it's a long drive from here to 101st Street, especially when the guy got to come back and go to the bathroom or come back and eat lunch or whatever it may be. It kind of adds a lot of time there. So I don't know what that looks like, but the brine tank was going to go in that building. Since we put that on hold, I figured we might as well put the brine tank on hold too. And then I did have another machine on there for about $250,000. It was a multi-task machine. It was going to be used to sweep streets, also cut limbs on dirt roads, cut trees back. I had some other capabilities on there too. But when we looked at it, they had two different machines. One was really built for mowing and doing that, and one was really built for street sweeping. So I was like, oh, there's no sense in buying two. Plus, then the guy told me that we could rent it out, and I thought, well, that's probably a better option than paying $250,000 for a machine. The backhoe is actually in pretty decent shape. I think it has about 2,000 hours on it. It's not used much, even though it is 30 years old. That, and we do have other machines now that we can kind of keep the hours lower on that machine. So I actually took it out, and Matt suggested that we just leave it in there so you guys could see it. But other than vehicle replacement and maybe vehicle replacement next year, it's not even a guarantee. We're pretty much good to go right now with the way we currently sit. So not a whole lot of big ask other than trying to find somewhere to put it or store it. So we're not trying to replace it because it's sitting there. So, you guys have any other questions?
So on the 40 by 60 building at the South Park, can we build down there? I was under the impression
We can build on the northernmost part.
the northernmost part. Okay.
So right where the berm is sitting, that's where the dirt from the original dig out was. That ground underneath that is undisturbed, so we can build up there. I don't know if you remember when Candy was here. We looked at building maybe an amphitheater or something down there and hosting events down there. That was because that north part can be built upon.
Okay.
Basically, the south part is, you could maybe put a parking lot in there, something of that nature if you build it
The
in.
structure would have, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you'd have to go down 30, 40 feet to hit undisturbed soil, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, from a builder standpoint, anyway.
So kind of general guidance is not just an equipment warehouse, but what ideally you'd like to see, a meeting area or conference room, some office space, not just an equipment shed.
Correct. Something, as the city grows and you gotta have those safety meetings and you gotta have those, even those conferences or whatever it may be. We've actually been asked by a lot of other cities to host things, a lot of other organizations to host things, because we are, I don't know if I would say the leader in gas in small cities, but we do have a lot of smaller cities reach out and ask us questions, or if we could host events. I know Rural Water reached out to see if we could actually host a backflow / trench and shoring class here, and train, and I don't know, with the community room over here, it's nice, but then we gotta leave the community room to go over to the shop to train. So a lot of that's held like Newton and stuff, but I know a lot of those contractors would rather train through KWRA than using Wichita's training for backflow. It's a little cheaper, but gas things that we have come in, the cities would send their gas operators here to be trained. by us. Obviously with Earl here, that helps a lot too, but we just got done writing 2 new OQs for gas training that were adopted by the state of Kansas. So when I say we're kind of the leaders and kind of, at the forefront of it, we do put those things together and try to reach out to other cities to help them too. So it'd be nice to have a meeting room or somewhere we could set apart and that was AC that everybody can get into instead of just sitting out there to shop when it's 109. So.
So if you're looking towards a future with growth, in addition to efficiency, equipment storage, what would your ideal hope be? You are so good at stewarding money, but what would your ideal hope be that you would like the governing body to potentially consider?
As for what?
A new public works facility. Would you like a new all-in-one facility where it's all in one location or scattered around the city?
Yeah, for me, it would be one centrally located spot. But for me, like I've had conversations with Matt, what that looks like for me is like 85th and Woodlawn, 85th and Rock Road, somewhere, where I think as the city grows will be centrally located because this is pretty much the far west boundary of the city of Kechi as we currently sit. When we pull out here currently, we have to pull out on the side road, which is not the greatest spot to pull out a grader or a big truck. I mean, just because of all the blind spots, but somewhere like that we could get out to. And when we dispatched out, it wasn't going to travel. We didn't have to travel, 7-8 miles to the northern part of the city.
And that's, you would consider that central as well as the growth going to the east, if that's the direction that growth would go?
That's what I would consider, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think when the city does finally decide to grow, that it's gonna go both ways.
Right.
I see a lot of homes and stuff going in up north. I see a lot of extra homes going in the rural areas, on 3 and 5 acre lots. Currently, I think that's what most people are doing. Getting to them one day and being able to get to them in time. Especially when they have needs, whether it be a water leak, gas leak, sewer, in the future. It's a lot easier to get to them than when you're at 53rd and Hillside trying to get to 109th and Hillside. So.
If the governing body was to decide to go to a centrally located new public works facility property, how large do you believe the building would need to be overall to have a centrally located public works department?
I think that you'd have more than one building.
Okay.
So you'd have one that would house probably your mechanics, people like that work on the machines. Currently, we do most of the work ourselves if we can. They would have the meeting room somewhere where the guys would meet centrally. And then you would have, your water department, your sewer department, your gas department as the city grows. And each one of those departments would have, their water pipe, their gas pipe, their sewer pipe, their machines that they need for that, their excavators, they would store those there. Your brine tank, things of that, that nature that you're going to fill up and store. So you have more than just one building. I don't think that the cost of building one building large enough to house all of that would be cost effective, to be honest.
So multiple buildings on one site. Would you see the current public works facility to be kept as a public works building down here? Or do you see that building able to be repurposed for another use for the city?
That's kind of up to the council. For me,
Right.
I could see it as a community building, something where they could put basketball goals out back maybe and host bingo nights or something, I don't know. But that would totally be up to the council. It's not hard to frame in those doors, those garage doors that we have and make walls. I know we had a few meetings ago about doing that on another garage. So, it's really not that difficult to do. And then you could, AC that area and you could put, people could host holiday events there or whatever it may be. That might alleviate some space for up here, to build out here. I'm not sure. Police maybe could move into that building. It is, 20 some foot tall, so you could even add a second level potentially. And you can add on to it, out to one side. It's just not big enough for us to add on and store the way it sits.
So when you said gas, water, and sewer housed, did you mean those housed in one building together or separate buildings?
Separate.
Okay.
Separate. I mean, it would be something, it would be like a 40 by 40 building. Maybe I think the one that I looked at was like $128,000. It was a 40 by 60 with a lean-to off the side. That would house, their excavator. It'd be long enough to store their 40-foot joints of pipe or all their coils of pipe. That way, when they left out to fix the water leak or whatever it may be, everything would be separate, and that crew could just go do that. If it was sewer, they need to fix a manhole.
So you're really talking about having everything contained and no more outdoor storage for
For the most part,
the most
correct,
part?
yeah.
Okay.
I feel as when you store stuff out, for one, that piping only has so long shelf life.
Yeah.
So currently, the gas pipe that we have stored outside, it can only sit outside for 3 years. After that, that pipe is obsolete. If it's getting hit by UV rays constantly.
Okay.
So we're trying to really store that inside. The last thing you want is $10,000-$15,000 worth of piping that you can't use anymore.
If I can piggyback on Mary's question. So we talk about having everything in one location to be able to move equipment around safely, have the space that you need. How many acres of land would you estimate would be necessary? Because we currently don't own anything up there, correct?
Right. I would say ideally 5 to 10.
5 to 10 acres.
I'm not sure what KDOT actually was set on when they put over there. I know they obviously have KHP there too. I don't know exactly how big most of their lot sizes are. But I would say probably 5 to 10. That way you could also store and actually safely store your brine tanks, because you're going to need to add those to one of the buildings. You're going to need to, store your pipe, but just once you start separating those things out, and you have parks, and you have streets, and you have gas, and you have water, and you have sewer, and then you have facility maintenance, and you start, separating all those out. They kind of need their own space, own parking, because ideally what you would have is, whoever that supervisor is being in that building. That way, when somebody came to the water department, they wanted to go to the water building and talk to the water supervisor, they would know where that was at. You want to talk to a gas supervisor, you know where that's at, And then if they needed to have meetings, they could come into the centrally located spot and do that. Like our KCC audits or our KDHE audits, where you typically have 4 or 5 people sitting in there looking through books and records and things of that nature. But yeah, 5 to 10, so where you can store your rock, your gravel, your dirt, and have a nice setup instead of just kind of just put out there.
So, in looking at a new facility, obviously right now we're 2,400-ish people. How much growth have you planned into consideration for the public works facility?
Can I step in here just a minute? So, I guess I didn't expect us to get ahead of ourselves. We were going to talk about this later in the meeting, but
Oh, okay.
as part of the CIP, built into the CIP for next year, we have a facility use study
Okay.
built in there. Hutton Construction came out, I talked to them, told them what we would need. That's where the pricing for that came from. We can either, when Matt Long was talking, I was going to go make my copies on that because we're kind of getting stuff in. So if we could, this is all good information. And this is the information, Thomas knows what his needs are. And this is information that would be included in that discussion with Hutton or whoever did a facility study for the city. And as part of that study, they would take all that information, all of Thomas's needs, his wishes, desires, look at the growth patterns for the city, where we may be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, look at the demographics of the city. We know that a lot of our materials goes up north, not necessarily in the south part of the city. So a good question to ask, and that may come out of that study, is do we need 2 facilities? Do we need a materials and handling facility further north, and then maybe our public works facility maybe in the same location, we just need to expand it or enhance it, or do we need to build it somewhere else that would be more ergonomic for public works? So absolutely good discussion here. I just wanted to let you know that that's what we were going to discuss a little further in the meeting, so we didn't get too far ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
So, and one thing Thomas and I talked about, we have ideas of what we want, but we certainly are not experts in that field. And that's why a facilities use study would be so important for us to have to give us some direction.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Matt, just to clarify, you're gonna give us copies of the CIP?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, so let's start out with the important stuff.
Would you do me a favor, please, and use the microphone? In past meetings, your voice doesn't quite carry to get picked up very well. Thank you.
It's not
I know. So Dustin, our IT guy, went home early today, so I'm kind of left picking up the pieces. Okay. Did you have some slides to do with that? Or are you good here? These are your slides here.
That's fine.
Okay. Your slides should be.
All right, so we'll start out with the big one, top line, ad valorem tax. We have prepared the budget to adhere to the RMI rate, which means that it's not a flat middle levy, it's lowered to, so that the property tax you collect will be the same as what you collected last year. You see there, I've got it at $310,943. That's the number that the state form spit out when I did all the revenue and other revenue and expenditure information. And so that will probably adjust possibly by a couple $100 before when we get everything finalized into the state forms, which we'll need to have approved for publication no later than the next meeting. Because your budget hearing is on the 10th of September, you need to have it published prior to the 1st of September, so we need to do that at the next meeting.
Before you go, can I ask you a question? Because it has to do with revenue neutral. I just want to make sure I understand everybody else does as well. Because this has been a county discussion.
Right.
In Kansas, countywide retailers' sales tax revenue is split between the county and incorporated cities using a standard two-factor formula under KSA 12-192. 50% is based on population, 50% based on property tax levies or assessed valuations. Right. For 2027, Sedgwick County has stated they only plan to capture 4.2% of there's about 7.3, I think it is, percent of their total assessed value for the county. Therefore, with the state formula, they are forecasting a loss of over $600,000 in county tax revenue for the county, which is a penalty for not capturing their full assessed value.
Right.
Cities who capture more than 4.2% of their assessed value stand to gain additional sales tax dollars. Therefore, if the city of Kechi chooses revenue neutral rate and captures none of our assessed value growth, what is the forecasted loss of county sales tax to our budget?
I would ask somebody at the county. That is a very complicated transaction. I've tried for years to figure that kind of thing out on my own, and I've never had any success with it. I would ask the county what their information says. I can reach out to somebody at the clerk's office and find out, but it's a very complicated.
It is
calculation, and it really is. I mean, it's very difficult to figure out as well, because we just don't know what retail sales are going to do. And again, the county is a huge taxing zone for retail sales, and I just don't know what they're going to do year to year.
Right.
To your guys, I mean, we'll see later when I go through the Q2. I mean, the revenue's up in county sales tax this year. Not staggeringly so, but it's definitely moving in a positive direction, which is a good thing. And the reason it's doing that is because prices are up. So obviously more tax.
Right. I just think it's important for everyone to understand that choosing revenue neutral, I'm not saying I'm not against that.
Right.
I'm just saying that we have a secondary issue that will occur Because if we don't capture at least 4.2% of our assessed value, we also will lose a portion of our county sales tax.
Right. So yeah, I could reach out and try to get you a number, but I don't think it's gonna be satisfying what I come back with. It's just such a difficult thing. But yes, it will have a small impact on that. Again, we're talking about a mil, I can't remember what the percentage it was, under 2 mils. I think we said it was about,
Because I know the example they gave was that Lake Bel Air is planning to capture about 4.9, so they're actually going to get a higher rate.
yeah,
Of
let
the
me
county sales
see
tax.
if I can look at
Okay.
that and see what
Yeah.
that looks
I just want to help to go informed into this
No,
whole thing, that decisions have
No.
impact.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to point that out.
Yep.
So anyway, just get back to the fact that, this is projecting a flat mill. You did notify the county that you would capture your full mill levy, so we can still change that before adoption. That is still possible. We just need to make sure that we publish that higher levy so we can, capture that. I would recommend you not publish your notice to be at the R&R rate, but if you choose to adopt it the night of the public hearing, but publish higher so you have the option to increase based on what we come back with.
Which the council did pass.
So what you did was you notified the county of your intent to exceed.
Oh, okay.
The official budget publication and the official R&R publication is the state statutory requirement. And so you have to publish that in the newspaper, and I'm saying at that point, again, I think it would be wise just for publication purposes to publish a rate higher than R&R, so you can always come down from that when you actually adopt the budget.
So you're saying like at least publish what would be a flat rate or status quo, which would be exactly the same as this year, but everyone can choose to go lower.
Yeah, and that'll be discussion for
Okay.
for the next meeting when we actually get into that specific, when you actually have that publication notice in front of you
Okay.
to adopt.
So you're recommending,
I'm not recommending anything.
Okay,
I'm saying
okay.
it would be wise to
okay.
not publish at R&R, just because if you, through more discussion, you decide, no, we need to.
Didn't we
So,
already do that
yeah.
to exceed the R&R?
He said that
Okay,
was something
so-
different.
So,
We
I'm
just
trying to
follow the
understand
same-
it.
you understand, right,
Okay,
Teresa?
I do, but I
we
just
follow
want to
the
make
same
sure
philosophy.
that we are clear about what you recommend, and it's not publishing what we had as our maximum mill levy, because we
Well,
went up a couple mills
Yeah.
from what
so
the mill levy was.
I would ask you guys to have your budget discussion after this and at the next meeting before we decide. I'm not gonna recommend anything as far as what you adopt, but I'm saying if you wanted to, you could publish at that much higher rate and just with the knowledge that you're gonna not adopt that at the upcoming meeting. I know I'm not, and I'm only recommending that to give you options in your budget discussion, give you options as you have your public hearing and people come in and maybe say, no, I mean, it's unlikely. Although I did actually have somebody come in once, prior to my last year in Goddard, my only public comment during a public hearing during budget was the first year of the salary cap, or the tax lid. And somebody came in and says, please don't cut your taxes. We're doing good. We need to do more. So you may have that happen. It happened to me once. But usually people do not come in and say, please raise my taxes.
I just
But-
wanted to make sure I understood which rate you were suggesting in your,
So
okay,
I would say
thank you.
you could go as high as that. I would recommend at least publishing at a flat rate flat to the 2026 rate, with the understanding that if you do intend to adopt lower, you still can adopt lower and adopt it R&R. It doesn't really serve any purpose to, you could adopt lower if you wanted to, but the whole point of the R&R process is to get you to adopt the R&R rate. That's why they put the burden of notifying the county, they put the burden of an additional budget hearing and additional publication. So they want you to adopt R&R, but you've already said you've already done all that. At least you've done the first step of it. So you're kind of locked into it whether you adopt R&R or adopt above it. So, I mean, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, let's go through the rest of the revenues here. As you see, state and local sales tax, 10, 100, 4130, that is your county sales tax. That's the one that could see an impact. You see, I am projecting it to be up about $18,000 more than last year. And I did a 5% growth rate for budgeting purposes in the next year. When I look into what you discussed about the capturing the full valuation, I will look at possibility of bringing that down a little bit. But I think we'll be safe even with that, just because I do not anticipate much slowing in inflation. The Kechi city sales tax, that is your your 1 cent tax to the city. It again is performing very well this year. I'm going to project it to be a little over $30,000 more than last year, and again another 5% next year. No other real surprises in any of your other revenue sources. Interest is a little higher. You switched your investment accounts over to that account through Enterprise, which is sweep account, so it's sweeping all your cash out every night, earning interest overnight, putting it back in. So that's done very well. I didn't increase it for the budget purposes next year, just because you never know. You could interest rates could go down. You could see drop in cash. So we're just going to basically carry forward the same budget as this year. Other than that, so my computer, I talked too much. My computer froze up on me. Anyway, you see there the revenue bottom line, what we're looking at. It will be higher than what was adopted this year. Most of that's due to growth in sales tax. And also, the sales tax for the city sales tax was not budgeted in this fund, even though it's been collected here. It was budgeted at the street fund, but we haven't budgeted here now. Let's see. We got a summary of expenditures here. We'll get into those individually as we go through the departments. First up is administration. Again, we're sort of projecting everything at a 5% increase over last year's budget, with the exception of for personnel. The exception is going to be health insurance, which we budgeted higher, just due to the nature of health insurance typically coming in higher. It's probably the number I've got there is probably far too high for what it's actually going to be, but we also like to build in the possibility of somebody on staff switching to a higher level plan. So take that into account. Sort of a budget trick to make sure that you're collecting enough personnel, or you have enough budget authority for personnel spending. Contractuals, again, we're following that same kind of pattern of making over budget by 5% in the previous year. Overall, the biggest increase you're going to see here is in this. That needs to change. That $216,000 there for custodial. You're not paying $200,000 for custodial services. So I'll make sure that change happens. I think that was supposed to go into an equipment line, but I'll verify that first. City Council, I've carried forward your budget from last year by 5%. You don't anticipate giving yourself additional stipends. We can lower that down, of course. I would ask if you would like me to build in contractuals for training, travel, etc. What number do you have in mind for that?
So for the mayor's office, I've learned a lot in these first few months. And I would say for education, training, and conference, looking at realistically $1,500. I've paid some things on my own this year because it wasn't budgeted in, and I'm waiting to see if there's money left at the end of the year to be reimbursed.
I believe there's money left to reimburse and to do more than that. I think it's important. This is me.
And I'm just taking that as just straight. That's not even like traveling overnight somewhere. That's just like cost to attend trainings and conferences.
I think it's worthwhile for you to put enough money in that multiple members of the board, if everybody can attend, stay overnight. The big one, the League of Kansas Municipalities Conference is fantastic.
Yes.
You guys will learn a lot at that. I think at least two of you should go because you will designate yourself voting delegates and take part in all that. Teresa, what am I not thinking of? The other ones that are big for governing bodies. A lot of
It's really the league that
It's the
provides
league
most of the training
provides
for that.
that.
Yeah.
there's something
I know
else.
that-
So there's also CED or
Yeah,
CEDBR. It's the Economic Summit
that which
that's coming up.
Yeah.
There-
Anything local.
Yeah, and that's, I've just mostly focused on local. Also going to the CARE WA conference, was very, educational and enlightening for an elected official to hear what's happening with rural water. I did have a pipeline safety seminar put into my box that, again, I think it's really important for elected officials to be attending different conferences. It actually was a, discussion in REAP today.
Yeah.
About how much local elected officials need to start making connections, networking, training, at all different levels, city, county, state, so that, there's more of a connection for your town with everybody else.
Well, I will go ahead. You guys do have a. Oh, I've got it here. I would show you my proprietary spreadsheet that technology I use, but I want to. You guys do have line items for, that kind of thing, training materials, association dues, whatever. So we can definitely build in additional money for that. I'm gonna shoot for like 3,500. That way, 2 people can travel, stay overnight, etc.
I think it would be important.
Get reimbursed for mileage, etc. So you guys don't have a city vehicle.
We do.
Okay, but we're using city vehicle for that. You know, code your.
I haven't charged any gas or mileage this year.
Well, as somebody who does bill people for gas and mileage, I recommend you do. The rate is very high right now, so you'll get a good.
I just tried to be really careful because it wasn't planned in this year.
Right.
So I've erred on the side of caution.
That makes sense. But I'll make sure that we get some, because that would just go into the travel item. So yeah, we'll make sure that we put some budget in there for that.
Great, thank you.
Facilities, again, it is a little bit higher this year. The signage, I believe, was what we put in for the estimate this year. I can take that out next year. Obviously, probably will there be more signage costs next year? Okay, so we'll pull that back out too. Building licensing, inspection. I kept the budget higher for next year, even though we show a smaller estimate this year. I think some things got switched around on the expenditure side with the technical services when you took on Imagine, and things are getting coded differently than before. I may do some journal entries that would bring that estimate back in this year for those. So I'll take a closer look at that. With some of your new services, things are there is a need to go do a deep dive. And I've been trying to do it month to month, but I'm still going back and put together these quarterly reports. I'm finding stuff that needs to be adjusted. So again, Public Works. This is just a portion of a salary, I believe, that's paid out of this particular cost center. So I increased that like we did our other salary lines. PD. Again, here, there's been a change in how personnel is paid. I believe or at least there was a second position being coded to the full-time salary, not the hourly wage. So I need to adjust that back down for the estimate, and then again for the budget, because I believe it's only chief now that's getting paid as a salary. Okay, so we'll definitely update that. But it'll just shift that cost from the full-time salary to the hourly wage line. So the total number is correct. We just need to adjust that a little bit before.
Okay, so the 212
Yeah, that'll
is
get.
what's going to be.
Yeah, that'll adjust down to just chief salary, and then because I believe you had another position that was half paid.
Yeah, so we
The
have
lieutenant.
the lieutenant/deputy chief position that's a salary position.
Right.
But
You
he's
kind of-
currently vacant,
And it's not going to be filled next year.
and we do not foresee
Okay.
filling it.
Yeah, so I'll verify that those are correct. I think we can just pull that out of that line. We won't have to shift it down. So that'll bring that budget down a little bit. So again, other big one there is health insurance. Again, that number's probably a little high, but I'm basing it on last year's budget. And again, I think that was anticipating the, filled staff positions. So I always like to budget full staff positions. we can adjust it down though, if you'd like.
Which line were you at?
Health insurance,
Okay.
5121. You see, I think I did this one, I did it 20% or 18 to 20% off of the 26 budget. And as you see, because you don't have full-time staff or not have all your positions filled, there's more budget than you have expenditures for this year for health insurance. So I'll look into it and run the numbers again. But I always like to budget for full staffing, even if you don't anticipate having it, just so the budget authority's there. But of course I can look at it. And court services, I just kept this pretty straightforward. 5% basically for year to year. Parks, this is pretty much only this cost center doesn't have any personnel actually at the moment. So again, it's just commodities and your contractuals here. I will look into the. I think in the past, maybe some of the. I'm in my mind. I'm thinking about your park projects right now, which are getting paid through the expenditures are actually getting paid out of the capital improvement fund, but we're using money that would have been transferred into the park fund to do that. So it's coming out of the right place, but it's just not running through that fund. We need to get with Tyler to set up the appropriate line items to transfer money into there. But yeah. And again, here you see that bottom transfer to the highway fund. That is, just your essentially 3 mils plus some change for street projects, 2 mils capital investment for parks projects, and then we push 15 into equipment reserve. Depending on what we look like at the end of the year, we may push more in there as well. Not that I'm worried about it, but I still like to have equipment reserve funds funded from as many sources as possible. And it doesn't show up here, but because it's in the police cost center, but there is $100,000 or $95,000 budgeted for police to push into equipment reserve. We do a fleet purchase next year.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, there's a capital line in PD. Let me go back. Sorry. It's capital transfer line, PD. That's pushing 100 to 90,000
So
to make a fleet purchase out of equipment reserve. And I like to do that because it gives you the flexibility. Let's say you budgeted police vehicle for next year, but there's some kind of shortage or whatever, they don't have availability, and you don't actually get it until the following year. That way you can still pay for it because you transferred it to a non-budgeted fund. So you can pay for it out of that fund rather than not just lose the budget authority to do it.
That's an expensive police vehicle.
Yeah, it's. I think it was just one vehicle, but
Because that's what I was gonna say, because I think the last several ones we had were around 50, give or take. So that's.
Well, I'm assuming that it's including all the outfitting costs. And
I think that's what he said, was all the outfitting that would go with it.
And I'm guessing it's also a bigger vehicle. It's not just a cruiser. It's like a SUV or something as well. When we used to, because I've worked for, when I remember purchasing big police vehicles like those Ford Explorers and Tahoes, and even years ago, those things we were budgeting $100,000 for those things just because all of the additional costs go into upfitting them, and well, at least for a while, availability was subject to first come first serve. So that also had an impact on it. I presented the street and the utility funds last time. I haven't really made a lot of changes. Some of the things Commissioner Moreland pointed out, we did adjust, including the water purchasing from your water source, et cetera. So I added those back in. The only thing I really want to point out in utilities is just that water is continuing to underperform, so we're going to kind of dig into ensuring that our all the rates have been put in correctly. But I mean, I want you to be prepared for the fact that we're probably going to come back in a couple of months and discuss water rate adjustments. Water is, I mean, it's not terrible. You're still I would say, comfortable, almost 25% cash reserve, which is good for water. I'm a little more worried about gas utility. You can see there how much that fund balance is of budget. It's less than 10% at this point. We're anticipating it going back up to about just under 300,000 next year, just because of the anticipated revenue. But and then you did have a lot of, I think some of these contractual costs this year were higher than anticipated. So
We had some big repairs
yeah,
this year.
so that's basically what's kept it, because we were expecting it to recover this year, and obviously it's less than it was last year, but it was because of those repairs. So next year, I'm going to put back in, I'm going to try to increase that transfer to reserve again. I think we'll still be able to do that 180 that we budgeted this year, but next year I want to bump that up to 200,000. The big one I'm concerned about, though, is, you can see here, is wastewater sewer fund. We're dangerously low there. It's less than 10% reserve, and unless there's an adjustment to rates, we're going to see that again. We're going to see it go a bit lower for 27, and I've stripped this down to the bare bones. So there probably needs to be a discussion about increasing your sewer rates.
And as you recall on sewer, we've had that conversation before that we do need to adjust those rates. They were adjusted several years ago, but there was no yearly escalation clause put in there like there is for water and gas. So we need to revisit that.
Like I said, I'd like to see at least a 15% ending fund balance for utility funds. And when I say I'd like to see 15%, I said you should have no less than 15%. I'd like to see 35% or 50%. But again, that way, you are comfortably able to hit any reserve targets you have. You're able to, not have a panic attack every time some small leak turns into a big leak, or, small event turns into a big event. I apologize for rushing. I want to get through. I know you guys have been starting in a few minutes. For my utility, I didn't update anything here.
I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
On the water utility
Yes.
sheet, is the 3% escalation that began on August 1st, is that included for next year's budget? Is it reflected in there?
Yeah, but again, I think that without, I actually put in more of an increase than 3%, just because I think there needs to be a rate adjustment. So we need to look closely at what that looks like. I can do the math real quickly. No, I didn't. But I think we need to look back at the rate study you had done, and I really think we need to investigate with Tyler to make sure that everything's working right, because the numbers that we're seeing for water rate are not what we anticipated.
Matt and I have been talking about that the last couple of days. We were on an upward trend, and now all of a sudden we're seeing not as much of a trend. So we think it's something on the Tyler side that's not pulling over. So he brought that to my attention on Tuesday when we had our meeting. So we need to see what's going on there, but we don't feel that those numbers are truly reflective of what's really going on. So,
But
we'll report it. But
yeah.
The gas increase, water increase that just happened for August, that's not gonna happen actually until,
We haven't.
The September bill. correct?
Right.
So it goes out of the September billing.
Because it's based on, I'm clarifying, is it based on August usage?
August usage, okay.
Okay,
I was just asking for
Well,
budgeting purposes if it was included in what he's projecting
And I
for
believe, we
2027.
haven't been notified yet, but I believe Wichita's going to have another wholesale increase for the year too. So we just haven't.
there's
So
multiple
more
things.
than their annual that they originally put out?
Yeah, that's what we've heard. We haven't seen anything officially.
My guess is that
That new water treatment
facility is going to drive that for a considerable amount of time. anyway, we're in the process of doing a deep dive on the water rates, and we'll make sure that we have updated information for you for the final budget adoption. Like I said, solid waste recycling and stormwater, I didn't really change much, just the standard 5% that I talked about. Looking for, well, if you guys just want to, I don't, oh, I was going to bring your key. Yeah, it was in the slideshow. So. Let's just follow along on the Q2 pages.
Yeah, you have them up there. You just won't be able to put them on the screen. Those are the handouts we gave you.
Okay, Darlene. Our apologies, we're finishing up a budget workshop.
Yeah, you guys should have these here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and move forward till you see the page that looks like this. It's got the property tax thing at the top. We have a multi-year review here. I apologize for that first graph, which shows that super high number for 25 at the beginning. For some reason, my spreadsheet is counting prior year ending balance at January 1st for some reason. Anyway, that's an anomaly. Anyway, so for here, we're looking at the darker green line that ends in June. And so for this point through the year, you're right on pace with your ad valorem tax. You know, it's basically carrying prior year collection with you know, taking your valuation growth to bring it up higher. Personal property tax, this is a you know, a portion of your sales tax as well. So it's looking right at where it needs to be. Again, I apologize for that January dip there. I think with that one, they actually did not receive the payment. The payment didn't go to the system at least until after the beginning of January, so that's why that's the case. Next is motor vehicle. Again, right on pace with where we anticipated. County sales tax, again, performing pretty well. It's actually recovered a little bit the last couple of months. They had a little dip there in May, so, but with the June distribution, it's right back on pace.
So I'm sorry, I understand that January we had one.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have an idea on why we were down 26%?
Again, it wasn't down. The payment didn't get processed into the system until. So I think I've been having to do multiple takes on is the way the payments get imported is the payment gets imported, it gets put into the packet. You'll understand this better than other rest of them will. But anyway, so it gets into the packet, but it's not showing up in the January reconciliation process, so I can't reconcile it until February. And so it doesn't actually hit the system until February. So it still came in right when it was supposed to, just for budget purposes. I could probably reverse it out and put it back in January for the initial adoption, not adoption, but for the you know, putting it there in that month. But again, it's one of those things where, you know, it's not showing up on the reconciliation. It's hard to make that go in there. But anyway, we did collect it. It's just
I wasn't looking at January. I was looking at June. So did June's payment not get?
No, it's also in.
It's going to be in July's.
It's in, but it's in limbo because of the way the reconciliation process works. So it's in there. It's just that I didn't have it's not hitting the system yet. So look, I'm gonna talk to Randy again, the auditor, and see if there's something we can do to keep that, prevent that from happening again. But that's why you see the same thing with some of the other ones that come in with the rest of the property tax payment. Franchise fees are down a little bit. I need to look in at that again. All the big ones I've seen every month, so I'm not exactly sure what that is. But I'll double check on that for you if I can. The big ones I've seen, of course, are Evergy is the biggest one, and I'm pretty sure I've seen that come in every month, so I don't know exactly what's causing that. The big ones here, state gas tax, county gas tax, performing on pace. Water revenue is up slightly. Gas revenue is down a little bit, about 11.5% through the month, which is, it was lower even than that prior to this month, so it's coming back to what it should be. And again, water sewer is down very slightly a year. Once you get past that, we've got the fund summary page, which shows budget actual revenues, expenditures for your operating funds, and variance from the budget amount. Revenues look pretty good. Expenditures are fairly on pace. The next page is the departmental, which actually shows the percentage. So you'll see that your admin, your facilities budget, and public works and PD are slightly above 50%. So we're during quarter 3 and 4, we kind of put a moratorium on any big ticket purchases that are not absolutely necessary. I think part of the reason PD in particular is higher than 50% is because they have those vehicle reimbursement purchases the first half of the year. But overall, general fund's at only 32% of budget, so that's good. Same with the street fund. Water, 45.5% of budget. Gas, 35.8%, and sewer, 31.9%. There's going to be a little. There's kind of an effect there, just to the fact none of the transfers or there may be additional debt payments for the year that don't get paid until later. So that will obviously affect that. But as far as for budgetary purposes through Q2, I don't see anything we need to be worried about. I appreciate your indulgence. I've taken 8 minutes away from your regular meeting. Do you have anything else?
Mayor and Council, we still need to go over just the CIP, which shouldn't take too long. I can just cover that during the regular meeting in my staff report, if that's okay with you. That way we can move into the regular meeting.
Okay. I would.
Go
ahead.
So the next meeting, we need to choose what we're going to do with ad valorem, et cetera. We'll have updated everything we talked about tonight. Any questions you have, please give them to Matt so you can send them to me, or you have my email me directly. The only other thing that we have not got yet is we're waiting on a debt summary from our bond counsel. So we'll have the bond and interest fund for the next meeting. Although since you guys don't really levy mills there, it's not really that big of a deal. But we do need to adopt a budget authority for it, so you can make payments and if you potentially have a. I like to build in the ability to issue temp notes in your bond and interest fund, just so you have budget authority. It's like if you decide to pay something off early, you have the cash ability to do that. So.
I guess the one question I have is, are we planning to do another 6 o'clock workshop on the 27th for budget?
But I live 10 minutes, 15 minutes away, so it's not a big deal for me to come here.
Yeah.
Whenever.
Let's, when we go into this meeting for the 23rd, we'll recess.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll recess.
Okay. I just wanted to have clarification.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Ending and going forward.
Did you do something about the temperature?
Well, our
Truly.
air conditioner was out in here this week. They just came out and fixed it yesterday.
Okay.
So I'll check the thermostat again, but it was really hot in here this week. So this is nice.
Okay, so are you guys okay with doing like a 5-minute break before we start our regular meeting? Okay, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Motion by Council President Hedstrom, second by Council Member Moreland. All in favor? We are adjourned and we will resume at 7:15.